I don't know, most of the time when you start at 7 a.m. or whenever, you don't really think you're gonna end up in the dark, but sometimes you do. Hi, and welcome back to Running Rants with Helen. As always, I'm Helen, and this is where I rant and talk about whatever I want. Today, we're in beautiful serene lakes. I don't think this is going to be relevant to most people unless you live in the Reno, Truckee, Tahoe area. But we are on a Tahoe Mountain Trail Experience route, which pretty much like Tahoe Mountain Sports makes a whole list of different routes that you try to complete within the month of July. You can hike or run or walk them. And then when you do the little segments, you get a little prize. And half the time I don't even really want the prizes, but I think it helps with the keeping running new and exciting, and sometimes I'll run in places that I wouldn't normally run. For example, I don't know that I would necessarily come to run here, even though it is very nice. I also have to make sure that we're going the right way. Yeah, and also it's kind of nice because I have my summer bingo that I've talked about, and this actually has a lot of overlap with my bingo. But I will say that I can't do some of the routes yet because one of my bingo squares is don't run the same route for 30 days, and I've already run some of them, and so I don't want to start that bingo square over. So today I wanted to talk about what I bring on longer adventure runs, and two things kind of sparked this. I was down on the east side last week, and I'll be back this weekend. It's just a little bit of different running than I have at home. A lot of it is more like bigger mountain hiking, walking, no trail situations, which I really like. Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun, but I think it also, you kind of need to be a little bit more prepared. As you can see on this run, I didn't bring anything except for a water bottle, and I don't even know if I'll drink any of it, and you can't really do that on those other routes. And I think just also remembering, so example, Jacob, Rod, and I ran up to Mount Mallory, which is pretty close to, it's a little south of Whitney, and there's a trail for the first 3.5-4 miles, but then it's a little bit more route findy, kind of scrambly, but even though that route was only 14-15 miles, it took us 6.5 hours, and I think it had maybe 7,500 feet of vert. So I just wanted to go over what I bring on runs like that or longer runs. First thing is I always wear a vest because you have to be able to carry all the things. I usually bring enough nutrition for at least an hour longer than I think it's going to take. So when Rod and I had originally talked about it, he said probably 8-ish hours. So I brought enough snacks for 9 hours. I also brought electrolyte tabs and a water filter. I feel like those Solomon water filters are such a lifesaver. I remember when I didn't have one and I was drinking out of a lot of people's hoses. But sometimes when you're in the mountains, there aren't even hoses to drink out of. So I feel like that one is always just a good thing to have. I don't normally bring sunscreen just because I know if I'm going to be out for a really long time, I will not reapply it. So I usually, I'll put sunscreen on my legs at the car, and then I'll wear a sun hoodie just because I feel like it also doubles if it gets cold or windy up there. It's all good, I'm in a long sleeve. or if it's really, really hot, you can get it wet. And I don't normally wear a bucket hat. I'll wear a normal hat so I can put my hood on. I really should be better about bringing chapstick, but I normally don't. And then I bring like a very tiny first aid kit. So I'll bring like duct tape or some other like medical tape, and like one of like those wound pads, and usually like a disinfectant wipe, which I know will not solve a lot of problems, but like even the tape stuff, like if you roll an ankle, you can usually like try to fix it, or if you cut yourself, it'll at least buy you a little bit more time than if you're just bleeding all willy-nilly. And what else do I bring? Oh, and then I guess the other thing is shoes. And then I want to talk about like the shoes that I've been wearing generally lately. But I feel like, especially when I know I'm going to be off trail and maybe doing a little bit more like rock climbing things, I pretty much will always wear the Hokas and all. And that's because it kind of has like a mini gaiter, like the top of the shoe is different, and it hugs more closely to your ankle, so I get a little bit less like dirt and sand in there. But then also that shoe doesn't have like the most cushion, which I really like, so you get a little bit more ground feel, and I feel like that's especially nice when you're just like on exposed granite. I'm never worried that I'll roll off the shoe. And then also that shoe has like 5mm lugs, and the rubber is very grippy, which I really appreciate. I kind of put myself in I was a lot more scared than I needed to be, because like 2 days after that run with Rod and Jacob, I just ran up to Lamerick Cole, which is outside of Bishop, but it's like all on a trail. So I wore some speed goats that like, I really actually haven't put that many miles on them. I've just been running on a lot of rocks, and so I kind of smoothed out most of the grip, and I thought since I would just be on a trail it was fine, but there was a bunch of snow, and so I had to go around, which meant a little bit of rock climbing, and it was actually very scary, because climbing up rocks when your shoes aren't grippy really isn't that much fun, and not being able to trust your feet is not fun. So I remembered that lesson a while ago on my sock video. I asked people for video suggestions, and one of them was like what my current shoe rotation is. And I guess I just want to preface this with, if you don't know already, I am sponsored by Hoka, which means Hokas are the only shoes that I wear. So I guess just keep that in mind when I'm saying all of these things. Although I will say that even before I was sponsored by Hoka, those were the shoes that I mostly wore. But yeah, I think like the main ones that I'm wearing now, and I will say like it shifts from season to season, especially when I start being in the mountains more. But yeah, there's an all 2. I already went over why I like that shoe. I usually won't wear it like on trails like this, just because I don't know, it seems a little overkill and it's not that squishy. And then the speed goat, I feel like that's just like my normal go-to for most things. Today I'm wearing the Mafat X, which honestly I don't really wear that much, just because of like the carbon, and they're not very grippy shoes, but I think they're good for trails like this. And sometimes you want a little extra squish. I've also been wearing the Torrent 4 a decent amount. I like the shoe because it's just a little bit less shoe than the Speed Goat. But I have found, like on wet rocks, it's not as grippy, which isn't always an issue. But I do like that shoe a lot. And then, I guess sometimes I'll run in the Challenger. Oh, I guess I raced in like the Mafat Satisfy collab shoe, but that's just because I like the grippy parts, and they're lighter than my normal Mafats, and they have speed laces. But honestly, I don't know. I think I am both very picky and not picky about shoes at the same time. Like, I guess before I was sponsored, I just always would run in whatever free assortment of shoes I got from like working at gear shops or running shoe stores. But yeah, I think I have, ever since I started running ultras, I've always worn Hoka's. Before that, all my college days was mostly in a Nike Structure, which really doesn't make any sense, but I did like that shoe. And I think Craig Ingles runs in that shoe too. Those are the things that I bring on long, like adventure mountain days. But honestly, I would say I'm pretty underprepared the rest of the time when I just go on normal long runs. I think because I'm on a trail, and I don't know, I guess in my brain I just kind of equate being on a trail with, well, I'll find someone or some sort of safety, which I don't think is necessarily true, but I don't know. I guess if I were to like fall and seriously injure myself on this trail, I think someone would find me pretty quickly. Like within at least, 24 hours.
So let's go back to shoes for a little bit. If you are making a decision, you personally, on what shoe to grab, like what factors in? You talked about grip. Maybe touch on like cushion, fit, all of those other factors that like make you grab a Speed Goat over a Zinal or vice versa.
Yeah, well, sometimes it honestly depends on my outfit. Like if I know I'm gonna be on like a normal trail with no scrambling involved, then I think my outfit probably plays a bigger role in it. I think the other thing is, like, I still love my Speed Goats, but with the pair that I currently have, because of where the grip is at, I likely will only do like easy, chill trails in it, just because of the experience that I've had recently. So like lately, my left foot hurts. If anyone knows what this is, let me know. But it's my left foot, and it's like the center of the ball of my foot hurts. But it doesn't hurt at all when I'm running, and running doesn't make it worse. It hurts like pretty much when I'm barefoot And so I've started wearing slippers in my house, when before I was like always barefoot. But yeah, then my foot started hurting. So I feel like also because of that foot thing, I've been like kind of leaning towards wearing more cushioned shoes. I don't know if that's like helping at all. I don't know. Like I said, running doesn't make it any worse. And like when I hadn't figured out the whole slipper thing in my house, I would like, my foot would really hurt and then I'd go run and then it would stop hurting. So I feel like that's also weird that like in those situations it felt like running was making it feel better. So yeah, if you know what that is, or you've experienced that, drop it in the comments, because I don't know what's going on. But if something's going to hurt, I will say that seems like best case scenario.
If someone's listening to this and they're new to trail running, or maybe new to running in general, like, how would you suggest they go about finding a shoe that works for them?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's always so tricky, because like one shoe might be super perfect for one person and then like be the worst thing ever for another person. And so I feel like unfortunately a lot of it is like trial and error. But I don't know, that's one reason why I think like actually going to a running store is really helpful, because then you can try things on. I guess it's a little different with trail shoes, but like even a lot of those stores like will have treadmills and you can try. I don't know, I feel like a lot of the time like just the comfort, or like when you put your foot into the shoe, if like you don't notice anything and it feels comfortable, like at least for me that's always kind of worked. And it's the shoes where I put it on and I go, that doesn't feel right, where I end up having issues later. So yeah, I guess like trial and error, even though that's like a super annoying answer. I feel like it also kind of depends on the trails you're running on, and just like personal preference. Like if you really like the squishiness, or if you want to be able to feel the ground. I don't think like one is necessarily right or wrong, just a preference.
I think a lot of running stores also have pretty lenient return policies for shoes.
Yeah, like Reno Running Company, it was 30 days, and it like literally did not matter how much you had worn them. I think Tahoe Mountain Sports up here has at least like, maybe it's like 2 weeks or something, but it's still like a pretty lenient policy where like you could definitely figure out if you like the shoe or not. Oh, the worst thing ever though is when they change the shoe and it was your favorite shoe, and then they change it and then it's not even the same shoe anymore. Most specifically, I'm talking about when I was in college, and I guess like right after college, outside of the Nike structure, the Saucony Kinvara 9, I loved that shoe. And then when I ran my first road marathon, I was like, oh, well, I'll just get like a Saucony Kinvara. But then they were on like the 13, and I think I like bought them at Reno Running Company, tried running in them, and like immediately was like, nope, this is not it. So I actually found some 9s on the internet. But yeah, I loved that shoe.
All right. Back to like adventure running. How do you balance like trying to pack relatively light and not hindering your experience with like knowing you have enough food, water, safety equipment to be safe and responsible?
Yeah. Oh, one other thing that I forgot that I usually bring are poles. I mean, I guess it depends on the run, but most of the time I bring poles. No, I think that unfortunately, I don't know if it's unfortunately, but I definitely lean towards the the lighter side, and I've ended up pretty lucky. I think that's like one reason why runners specifically usually end up in quite a bit of trouble with search and rescue, is because we can make it pretty far and then you get hurt and then you're pretty deep out there, which not great. I generally try to be at least a little bit responsible, because I also don't want to put other people at risk for like the risks that I am choosing to take. But yeah, I don't know, I think it is a balance. Like I said, I always bring more food than I think I need, and if I have a water filter, then at least I have, like, if there is water, I have the option. I mean, I'm also really bad about this, but you do always have the option to turn around. I guess there have been a few instances where you can't, and at some point you are to the point of no return, especially with loops. But I mean, I think at the end of the day, anytime you are in the mountains in whatever capacity, like, there is a certain amount of risk. I've like said this so many times, but the mountains don't give a fuck about your plans. And so, like, I don't know, I think you just actually have to, like, think about it and not get so stuck that, like, you won't bail. Like I said, sometimes there are situations where, like, you don't have the option to bail. I feel like that's just a tricky thing. Like, mountains are dangerous, but, like, so is driving your car. And I don't think, like, the fear of being in risky situations is, like, quite enough for me to not put myself in them.
Tell a story about a time when you felt like underprepared for a run, and kind of what you could have done differently.
Yeah, like I said, I feel like I've been pretty lucky in those situations and, like, figured it out. But I guess, like, the one that comes to mind is out of Bridgeport. There's a route called Matterhorn Loop, and I think it's like 20 something miles. I don't know how much, I'll post my Strava file. Except I do think my watch died, so I think I'll figure it out though, and I'll put it on here. But this is a time where I feel like I probably should have turned around, but I was too stubborn and stuck in my plan. And then I got to the point of no return. I did this route in 2023, and there was so much snow. Like, so much snow that I did not anticipate on the backside. And it's also, like, a decent amount of, like, route finding and scrambling. And I mean, I made it to the top, and there was, like, relatively very little snow. But you're not on a trail. And then I down climbed something that I shouldn't have down climbed, and I got cliffed out, and I tried climbing up and I couldn't. My foot kept slipping, and then you start to, like, panic a little bit, because you're like, I'm on a ledge in the middle of the wilderness all by myself, and I feel stuck. So I sat down and I took some deep breaths and calmed down. I said, Helen, if you can down climb something, that means you can climb up it, because down climbing is much harder than normal climbing. So I gave myself my little pep talk, and then I was able to climb up. I think it's just scary when you're kind of, like, on slabby stuff that doesn't really have handholds, and you just really have to trust your feet, and your feet are in running shoes. But it wasn't this at all. And so it was fine, but I feel like sometimes you just have those little panic moments, and then you get shaky knee when you're trying to climb, and you're like, oh no, I guess I will also say, like, I got really into rock climbing for a while, so I do have like a decent amount of rock climbing experience, which I think helps me a lot in these situations because I know what it's like to be scared and to still make moves, and I think I have a decent understanding of my body position and how to climb. Yeah, and honestly, probably at that point I should have just turned around when I got to the other side and I saw how much snow there was, but like I said, I was kind of stuck and being a little bit too stubborn about turning around, because also getting off of Matterhorn, there was like this whole sandy like gully, and I'm like, man, I really don't want to go back up that. But oh well. And that route did take me much longer than I thought it would, and I'd say like 80% of it was covered in snow, and then parts of it, the snow was really, really steep, and at least like for the most part it was pretty good snow. Like, it hadn't gotten to the point of being strugy, is that what it's called? I don't know. It even wasn't like sun-cupped too badly, so it was still okay, but there were just some really steep pitches. So then I'm like kicking steps to like down climb all of this snow, and yeah, looking back, probably not the smartest of decisions I've ever made, but I was literally fine. Oh, another thing that I normally bring is like some of like that wrap stuff, but like that kind of goes along with the tape of like ankles and whatnot. And I have a little tiny headlamp that I normally bring because I don't know, most of the time when you start at 7 a.m. or whenever, you don't really think you're gonna end up in the dark, but sometimes you do. Yeah, I feel like especially routes I haven't done before, you're like, oh, well, like I understand the mileage in vert, and so I just don't really think it'll take that long. And then it in fact does take that long. Like I've talked about it before, but like the 7 Summits loop in Desolation, you're like, oh, it's like 26 miles with 10K of vert, like really shouldn't take that long. And then you're like, oh, it's been 9 hours. And I think that's just like, yeah, if you don't understand the like route finding or just how technical it is. This has been another episode of Running Rants with Helen. Like I said, if you know what's going on with my foot, put it in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time.